Hello, I'm Dr. Alan Nellis, and I'd like to talk to you about making law and gospel preaching much more memorable. I'm an ordained clergyman associated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. My lifetime of ministry has been spent primarily as involved with the faculties of various educational institutions of our church, primarily that of Concordia Theological Seminary in Fort Wayne, Indiana. With the explosion of brain research in the early 1990s, I became especially interested in the brain, its functions, and its implications for our ministry. That led me to the publication of several books and articles and the preparation of another. I would like now to share with you some of the latest implications of those for the church's ministry. And I would like to address primarily seminary students, seminary faculty members, clergy, and also teachers of religion. And perhaps others may be interested as well. Thank you. Unforgettable preaching and teaching. That's such a noble objective, isn't it? It's achieved perhaps not perfectly, but at least somewhat, by a few exceptional preachers and teachers. But for the rest of us, well, we may hear maybe 2 or 3 times in a lifetime the complimentary words, "Pastor, I remember so well that sermon you preached. It meant so much to me." Well, could we ever do any better than 2 or 3 times in a lifetime? I believe so. Likely not completely so, but at least more than the 2 or 3 times that may occur now. I want to offer a caution to that noble objective. No matter how revealing my suggestions may be, this is still just traveling the road to unforgettable preaching and teaching. You know as well as I do, we're not perfect and never will be. Let's talk a little now about preaching and teaching. Our prime objectives in preaching are to preach the gospel and to share what God says about biblical truths in His Word. Teaching religion courses, of course, has usually been used to explain biblical truths and doctrines. Sharing the gospel, of course, also occurs at times. But is there anything we can do now to make a sermon or class presentation unforgettable? Well, we can focus on what we're trying to do. Focus on that person in the pew, the student in the classroom, and a little more specifically, what will he or she remember from listening to you? Notice I'm trying to emphasize what the person may be expected to remember. That would be the preacher's and teacher's major technical objective. But that question leads to another. It is, how may I help that person, that student, remember a particular biblical truth? As preachers and teachers, we have the challenge of helping listeners remember too. Now that used to be the listener's responsibility almost entirely, but now there is something that we can do to help. Well, how can we help? First, is there a place in the brain where we store our memories? And where is it located? Well, yes, there is. Right there. It is located in what's called the prefrontal cortex, that very black area right behind our eyes and forehead. God created this brain of ours along with a place for our memory. Now we've each been given this 5-inch long, 1/2-inch deep cortical mass. It's the executive center of our thinking, analyzing, planning, deliberating. It contains all the knowledge we've gained in our past 20, 30, 50 to 60 years. Data, information, even things like the statement, "The world is round," or "Jesus is God," or the 50,000 word vocabulary of the average high school graduate, and the memory of that sermon. So, now what do we do? What's there about this memory system that can help us figure out how to help a person remember our sermon? Here's the pivotal point. Maybe we can find out how a person actually does remember. Yes, we can investigate to find out whether there are any particular strategies or methods that can help us remember. Well, let's hold up a moment here. Find out that this is where we may use what we learn about the brain's learning strategies. And we use those strategies to help the person listen and remember a biblical truth. But let's hold up a little bit more now and ask, is that all there is to it? Let's look at the brain a little more closely. Look, we have not just one memory system, we have at least two more. The first one that I found holds knowledge, factual data. The second is for emotional events, important personal memories from our past. That's technically called episodic memory. A third system holds the values that we use to guide our life. Amazing, isn't it? Of course, you may ask now, well, what do these memory systems have to do at all with unforgettable preaching and teaching? Well, to find out, why don't we follow the same procedure we use with our knowledge memory? Let's see what a person does to place a memory in those systems. Let's find out what learning strategies a person needs to use to consolidate a memory of a biblical truth in each of these two additional systems. And then we can think of using those strategies to bring to bear upon the person in the pew, the student in the classroom. Maybe those strategies will prove to be effective to help what we say in a sermon really become memorable. Now, I'll just jump ahead a little bit and show you the results that we can expect. The knowledge system, memory system, gives us what we may call head knowledge. The episodic memory helps to bring us heart knowledge that we come to absorb and believe in our heart. And finally, with the values memory, we gain living knowledge, what we use to live by. I'll be talking about these three types of knowledge separately in the next 3 videos. All the strategies that we will have learned about can help a person consolidate the knowledge in the respective memory system. This, as you can tell, is a journey into our brain, the brain that God created for us, so that we can take control of our desire to help our people learn, to believe, and to live what He sets up for them in the Bible. It all leads us on the road to unforgettable preaching and teaching. Now, I'm sure that you will be able to use this information in your ministry, whether you are a preacher, a professor, or a clergyman, or a seminary student. In the second video, I shall explain the brain's strategies that lead to head knowledge. The third covers the strategies that result in what I call heart knowledge. And finally, the fourth video brings us to living knowledge. I look forward now to meeting with you again for the second video. strategies that help the listener learn and remember. Thousands of books and articles have been written about brain research since the early 1990s. Many of them have implications for different aspects of our church's ministry. I'd like to focus especially this morning upon two of those basic ministries, preaching and teaching.